Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Akira Kurosawa was born in Tokyo in 1910, trained as a painter, and became a film director. Rashomon, in 1950, made him internationally known, winning major awards at Venice and from the Academy. Over the following decades, he made Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, and dozens of other films. He influenced Lucas, Spielberg, Leone, and established Japanese cinema as a force internationally. He died in 1998. We're starting House of Kurosawa with Rashomon because it's where the world discovered him and where he turned a philosophical problem into cinema. It opened doors to everything after: the samurai films, the crime dramas, and the technical experiments. Before we begin, a content warning. We'll be discussing sexual assault throughout this episode. It's the basis of the story, even though it isn't explicitly shown on screen. Each testimony deals with what happened to the samurai's wife in different ways, and we need to talk about it to talk about the film. I'm Tristan Riddell, and with me, absolutely certain he knows what happened even though he wasn't there, and ready to tell you his version with complete confidence, Darren Moser. And playing the cynical commoner at the gate, convinced everyone's lying, including me and probably himself, John Mills. Rashomon means four people witness the same crime and tell four completely different stories. Truth is unknowable, memory is unreliable, and everyone lies to look better. Let's sit under the ruined gate, wait out the rain, and argue about what we just saw. This is Houselights.
Well, there you go. And thank you for joining us, everybody. From my point of view, that was a decent intro, although it could have been better because I'd say I'm more the cynical monk than anything else. But that's okay. That's okay.
That would mean that you would be disillusioned with humanity, and I think that disillusionment went a long time ago.
No. You'd be surprised. It's very recent, much more recent than you think. I'm looking forward to talking about this because Rashomon is a movie, like you said. Like, it puts Kurosawa on the international map. It puts Japanese cinema on the international map in a completely different way. And people are still referencing it in film and imitating it in film, both ineptly and expertly. And it's fascinating to see that something 76 years later can still have such a direct, traceable impact through film. People love to talk about, oh, this is a great film, this is the greatest movie, and it's hard to listen to those conversations sometimes and notice how many times people leave Rashomon out of the discussion. It doesn't occur to people because I can sit there and I can say, I don't know. Let's say I would look at just pulling out Touch of Evil. Hey, that's one of the greatest films of all time. Yeah, but Touch of Evil is now sort of like a niche knowable thing. It's part of a subgenre that hasn't really survived, sort of thing. But people are still making direct reference to Rashomon, from Ridley Scott to whomever else in
Star Trek.
Tons of film. And I think it's an important work to talk about. I'm glad we are.
And with Star Trek now, I'm thinking, who fired the torpedoes? But
no, I was thinking of the Riker episode.
Oh, yes, that's true. Well, for me, this was first time seeing any Kurosawa besides
Same here.
The name.
Wow.
And in researching, learning the fact that Rashomon is like a verb now. It's defining not just the unreliable narrator or the multiple points of view. I think purists would say if you're really doing it the same way, you have it be more ambiguous at the end, whereas nowadays we're often, as audiences, given what is the right answer at the end, which is maybe a hair degree off of a true representation. But that's here nor there. It's a film term now, which is incredible. That's still in use. Maybe not widely to the public, but in film circles.
I would say that that's not just a hair off, because I think with Rashomon, you can definitely walk away and there is still that lingering question, but I know several examples that I would offer to you where when they go back in the last version they tell is like, but here's what really happened. I think that actually kind of violates the spirit of it because...
Oh, I agree. They're cousins. They're different flavors of the type of filmmaking.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, Darren, you're talking about it being a verb. It's in sitcoms. I shouldn't say sitcoms. I should say in television. it's become this thing where there's always these different types of episodes that you can do when you do a sitcom or a drama or a genre show or something like that. It's just like, okay, this is the singing episode. Like, this is the musical episode. This is a bottle
he said,
episode.
She said episode. Yeah.
This is the he said, she said episode. Like, this is the episode where all the power goes out. Like, everyone has those certain things. Rashomon is one of those. Like, the people who are writing the episodes may not know that's what they're doing, but that is the episode that we're getting. It's just like, oh, now from this, like, even How I Met Your Mother did it. It's like, now it's time for Lily's version of the story. Now it's time for Marshall's version of the story. And I think there's variants of it. And I'm sure people could argue with me, and I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but there's certain variants where when you have an entire episode and you have the beginning of the episode as one person's perspective, then you get to the second and the third and the fourth, and there might be some overlap, but it gives you the complete story altogether just from different perspectives. And, it doesn't repeat too terribly much so that it keeps the momentum going. That's a variant of Rashomon, whatever you want to call it. But then, but the true one, like John, like what you're talking about, like no diluted version is same event, 4, 5, 3 different tellings of the same exact thing.
I'm curious, since this is y'all's first time coming across it. I mean, I'm not trying to jump forward to the endings or anything like that. It's always tough going in. I remember the first time I watched Rashomon was not too long ago, actually. I'd seen other Kurosawa, but Rashomon was just a reference that I got. I understood it. And like, I always make reference to The Simpsons had one of the greatest jokes of all time on the show, where it's like, oh, you love Japanese culture. No, that's not how I recall it. Like, and the thing is, they don't say it's Rashomon. Like, it's one of those things where if you've seen Rashomon or understand Rashomon, you laugh, and everybody else is like, oh, Homer's just being dumb. And it's just like, it's so funny. It's just a perfect joke. But do you find yourself going into a movie like this expecting it just to be an intellectual exercise? You're not expecting to like it or hate it. You're just looking at it as, okay, well, it's sort of required that I have to see this so that I can understand the references. I have no expectation of liking it.
Yeah. You pretty much nailed it. Yeah. I mean, this was no, this is no offense to the film. I didn't go in expecting not to like it. I was totally open to enjoying it. I was totally open to liking it and appreciating it, but it was very much a technical exercise. It was very much like, okay, this movie is referenced in so many different ways and so many different things. And, speaking of which, this movie is based on 2 Kurosawa short stories, one called Rashomon and one called In a Grove. And Rashomon provides the gate rainstorm framing device, and In a Grove provides the murder sexual assault story. And I actually did a number of years ago a mini documentary on an opera that was based off of In a Grove. And so I've been surrounded by this story and the source material, and being a film student, it's so embarrassing to admit, but I know so much about Rashomon and Kurosawa on an intellectual level, without actually experiencing Kurosawa. It's very embarrassing, and I don't know why. It's one of those missing frames in my life, but it just is. And so I'm super excited for this house. And it's so when I went into it, I was kind of like, okay, this is an old movie. It's an old black and white. It's an old foreign film. I'm sure it's going to be like Casablanca, where I'm just going to experience it from a technical aspect. I'm going to be like, okay, look at that camera movement. Look at the editing. Like, this is something that you need to watch and experience and ingest as a film lover. And I was surprised. I was surprised at how interesting the story was, the pacing was, the editing was, the cinematography, everything. Darren, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I went in blank slate. I think that's one of the things, and it's probably going to continue with Kurosawa. If you don't research at all, even the titles, like, I don't know what Rashomon is. Is it a place? Is it a person? Is it a emotion? I don't know. So I had zero context, and we start in the rain, and I'm like, okay. And then I was like, this is a really interesting framing device for a completely different story. But yeah, I too was captivated by, I mean, the modeled lighting in the cinematography, and the way they always keep a clear silhouette of the actor in front of that background, even when it's all black and white. You would think they would get lost in it so easily, but they don't. And it's one of those movies that I have to put on my context hat as far as remembering this is far enough or long enough ago that things are new. Meaning I can't watch it and be like, oh, look, it's a multiple point of view and unreliable narrator. Yeah, so what's the big deal? Oh, no, that hadn't been done like that before. So you have to give it that context of, oh, this is amazing because it was the first time, or is the first time it was applied in that way. And I will also say the fights were really interesting. Like, I actually felt the peril, which I feel like modern cinema, I just don't. Maybe because they're using guns or whatever, and there's so much plot armor in modern fights that it's almost predetermined who's going to walk out. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but you felt, or at least I felt, the fear in the moments as they each gained the upper hand, as they each tried to figure out what, if going into this fight was worth going. But what do you think,
No,
John?
I think what you're identifying there, I'm glad you mentioned the choreography of the fights and everything like that, is it does feel more brutal and more real because we are not in the era of the, I always mispronounce it, the balletic, the ballet type, the balletic, the John Wick gunfights are all about staging and camera work and movement, and it looks beautiful. Yeah, the Matrix effect or the John Woo effect, where it's like the bullets are flying, but it's really just sound and effects sort of thing. Whereas this is
squeeze the trigger, someone's going to die, it's going to hit. He's never going to miss.
Right.
The plot won't allow it.
But they're, layered on top of that, I think also, you're calling out, oh, this had never been done before. This is, I think, a very apt comparison to Citizen Kane in the US, where Kane comes out, and it's not until later that people realize, oh, wow, this is a great film. And look at what it all did for the first time. Now, international audiences recognize Rashomon more readily than Japanese audiences. And that's specifically because if you look at the reviews of the time, a lot of the Japanese critics were like, oh, he's breaking all these rules. Whoa, what are you doing here, man? This is crazy. What's going on? And it's like,
it's cross the line.
But it's
180 degrees for a reason.
It's so fascinating to see how that just repeats through time. People get locked in. This is what cinema is. This is what movies are supposed to be. One person comes along and says, you know what, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it this way. And 9 times out of 10, the reaction is, oh, well, what is this, amateur hour? Don't you understand what the rules are here, what you have to do with everything? And it takes that outsider's perspective to look at it and say, oh, wow, that's dang neat, man. That's pretty cool what you pulled off there.
I mean, I think of Memento, like, oh, I'm going to tell a story backwards and put the ending at the front, but I'm not going to be rewinding it. And I still, it's hard to wrap my head around how that movie is constructed. If you want to talk about breaking the rules.
1 in a billion type of movie that one is. That's for sure.
So I want to review real quick for our listeners and for ourselves. We have 4 different stories. And so I think we should all agree on what we're calling it. So we have the bandit, Tajumoro. It's basically, I seduced the wife. She begged me to kill husband. To save her honor, I fought samurai honorably and won. Number 2, wife's testimony. Masago. Bandit raped me. Husband looked at me with contempt. I fainted, holding dagger. Woke to find husband dead, implying accidental or suicide. Number 3, samurai. Through a medium.
Yes.
Wife encouraged bandit. Begged bandit to kill me. I committed suicide in shame. Number 4, woodcutter. I secretly witnessed it. All 3 were cowards. Bandit begged wife to come with him. Wife goaded both men to fight. They fought clumsily and desperately. Bandit won almost by accident. Now, Darren, you were talking about the fight choreography. I absolutely love that the bandit's testimony when it comes to the fight was an epic battle.
Right.
And everybody was awesome with swords. And then when you get to the passerby, the woodcutter, he's just like, they were a bunch of fools rolling around in the dirt.
Yeah, didn't know what they were doing. It's amazing that anybody even got hurt. Because they look at these chumps fighting like this,
which lends itself to believability because no one looks good in this scenario.
Right, no one does look good.
Not saying it is the one, but I think that's what a lot of people gravitate towards because it's the last one and because everybody looks like fools.
Right.
And so, no one's going to paint themselves in a negative light.
And it's the only one told through the other framing device, which kind of intrinsically lends it a little more credibility because it is not actually, technically, they all come through the framing device because the other people are relating their encounter at the police station. So it's already secondhand, but
the thing is, I think the movie is a very clever trap because it baits you into asking the question of which one is the true version. And I think that its ultimate sort of subversive point is, well, the truth is all dependent on who the person is and how they experienced it, because you can rewrite your own memory. So to the bandit, yes, I fought an epic battle defeating a samurai. To the other guy, he's got his view where he's like, it just looks like a bunch of people rolling around. What do they know what they're doing? Whereas, like, how many times do you get something where somebody views a martial arts fight in reality, and they're like, what are they even doing? They're just rolling around with each other. And then you have martial arts experts or fans looking at it going, oh my gosh, look, he got that arm bar just in the right. Oh, how did he do that? And the other person's like
chess when you don't know it, and you're like,
right.
Oh, they did the Queen X5 move, and you're like, I just saw a piece move. I don't know. I don't have the context for the epicness of that moment.
But while the particulars might differ and everything, it's all true for each person because of the fact that it's how they live with it, and it's like how you live with the memory is going to be colored by so many different things. And it's a very difficult thing to say given the subject matter, right? That's a very difficult thing to say because you wouldn't, there are certain things you would never want to think are subject to memory or interpretation. And, like, I'm not saying that oh, well, therefore each one is the gospel truth. I'm saying that like each person, no matter what the truth was, is going to remember it that way. So in a sense, even experiencing the event isn't truth. It's truth from your perspective. I think that's the really subversive, clever thing that it does while it's baiting you into this debate of like, which one is the truth? It's not that simple. It's like you have to take a piece from each one and sort of like put it together like a puzzle.
Tristan, I'm curious, what do you think about the wife's point of view? Because I felt hers stood out a little differently. I mean, the husband is dead, or the samurai's dead. And so it, in a way, it doesn't matter as far as it pertains to the rest of the trial or the Inquisition. And the bandit is kind of, he starts off with, oh, you're going to kill me anyway. So I kind of discount his telling because he's kind of given up. But the wife, I feel like it felt the most of a story that got changed by regret and grief on what happened, because she's basically throwing herself at the mercy of the court of, oh, you wouldn't, again, like it's an accident, or it wasn't meant to happen, especially since the other attributes or tellings really paint her in a very poor light.
Yeah, I think it's definitely by design, because when you look at the wife's testimony, it's and what little I know about Japanese culture, except especially during feudal Japanese culture, like with her being assaulted, it would not be out of the realm of possibilities for the husband to look at her with disgust, like with blame, like, you let him do that to you. How could, I can't accept you. You're damaged goods. We've all heard the story. We've all seen it in countless cultures around the globe, even today. And then like she cuts his bonds, and all he does is stare at her. And she knows exactly what's going to happen. She knows exactly what he's thinking, even though he doesn't move a muscle, he doesn't change facial expressions. She knows exactly what's happening. She sees the rest of her life in that single moment when she's staring at her husband. And she faints holding the dagger, wakes up to him, dead. I think this is my interpretation. Again, like this is one of those things where, Kurosawa himself has said, Like, there is no right or wrong. There is no, like, life doesn't work this way. Life doesn't always give you a definitive answer. But to me, when you look at the woodcutter's perspective, you see a woman who is unhinged. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say it with disrespect. She's broken. Like, she was physically assaulted. She was pursued by her tormentor. And then she recognizes that her husband will not want her or take care of her anymore. And she's in a culture where that's totally okay at the time. And
her life, as she know it, is over.
Right. And so, like, I can totally see her going into a fugue state and acting, quote unquote, rational, but not remembering any of it. And so I can see, like, a mixture of the woodcutter's testimony and the wife's testimony being true, like a combination of the two.
What about the factor that somebody says, well, none of you are telling the truth because you keep saying dagger and he was killed with a sword? Like, does that, that sort of thing adds its own ambiguity, because is that true? Or because, of course, you later find out somebody took the dagger, and it's like, so what part of it is actually...
Well,
is
like,
that even...
That's the thing, though, is that the woodcutter is the one who said he was killed with a sword.
Right.
And so, but he also could be the person who stole the dagger.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
He has reason to change it.
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
To hide his crime.
Right. Well, also because he witnessed a thing, and instead of doing anything at all, he sought personal gain by taking something from it. I got to ask if this is your first time. So Darren, you've never seen any other Kurosawa. Tristan, you have seen some Kurosawa, right?
Nah, man,
None?
I haven't. It's insane.
Okay. So,
like I said, it's embarrassing.
And we are both film students. Shame.
I know, right? This is the stupid part.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not. I've seen. I'm better than both of you. This is nice. Nice to know. That's from my point of view. But with Toshiro Mifune, goes on to become quite a name. Does a long collaboration with Kurosawa. This is not the last time you're going to encounter Toshiro Mifune in one of Kurosawa's films. And he plays Tajimaro, I'm going to butcher names and stuff like that. But as also fellow Star Wars fans, I'm sure you guys know, he was one of Lucas's original picks to play Obi-Wan Kenobi when Star Wars came around. And what I want to know is, was he a revelation to you? Did you see something in his screen presence? Because he does go on to become quite a name in Japanese cinema from this point. So did you see that in his performance? Is that something, did it grab you?
It did for me. I mean, he was definitely the most interesting character of the entire movie. And not because he was kind of crazy. I mean, it's easy for the crazy characters to kind of be the most memorable, or like you don't know what they're going to do, or they're laughing or, reacting. He communicated a ton with just his expression. Just the little things, like occasionally swatting at the flies, was like he's in this weird state of calm right before battle. It just was so unique and interesting. So yeah, I completely buy Kurosawa being like, oh, we're hitching our wagons together and you're going to be my star for many of it. This is the second movie he was in for Kurosawa in 1950. Like they already were working together.
Speaking of which, oh my gosh. Okay, so the timeline that they filmed this, it was, I think, 37 days, and then it released in the cinemas that same month.
Yeah, no, I think post-production was only like a week or something like that.
It was 37 days of shooting, a week of post-production, and then it released at the end of the month. That's insane.
Well, I think if I read correctly somewhere, the post-production was even delayed by like 2 fires or something like that. So like it could have been less than a week that they turned that around. I mean, from a technical standpoint, from a filmmaking standpoint, I take that as a statement of a filmmaker who definitely has a vision and knew how to get exactly what he wanted on set. Like, this is not a guy who was like, oh, let's try this. This is a guy who walked on set and it was like, no, this is what we're doing. You go there, do this thing. You go there, you do this thing. And there's a plus and a minus to that approach, I guess you can say. But I'm glad you called it out, Tristan, because it's one of those things when you and I'm not saying this in like a grumpy old man shaking your fists sort of thing, I swear. But when you see things where people are like, well, we didn't have a script when we started filming and it cost us $850 billion to make the movie. And we got to make like 3 or 4 trillion to break even after marketing. And you're like, and you go see that movie and you're like, eh. And then this movie, like you're saying, well, we shot it in like a month. We post-production in a week. And 76 years later, people are still referencing it. Like, what a statement of art and craft as well, that somebody could craft something like that resonates, that sticks with everybody for so long. That's, triumph of the human spirit over technology, I guess, right? Something like that.
It's one of those things where it's true, where when you make art and you believe in it, and it has a much bigger possibility of staying power.
Right.
Where if you just churn something out, even if you throw tons and tons of money at it, it doesn't mean that it's going to have a lasting legacy, even if it's big and makes a lot of money. I mean, because like Rashomon, they were really excited about all the international praise it was getting, all the critics that loved it. It got the Lion Award at Venice. It got the honorary Oscar at the Academy Awards, and some say that like Rashomon is the reason why we have why we had the foreign film category, is because they're like, oh God, if more movies worldwide are coming out like this, we need to catch up with the times. But the thing is, it didn't translate into dollars at the time, and they were so angry.
Right. I think this is like the 4th most profitable movie that I think Daiei Studios. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Because like it was originally Toho was supposed to do it, and they were like, nah, we're good. And so the studio, like this wasn't even like the most successful film of this studio for that year. So yeah, it's very, again, drawing another comparison as Citizen Kane there, where it's like that was not a financially successful film by any stretch. And, so what is it about art that makes it so difficult sometimes for it to find that audience at first go? It's wild. It's really wild.
One last thing I wanted to say about Toshiro, I just did a quick look up, and we're going to be seeing a lot of him because of the other ones we're covering in the House of Kurosawa. At least the next 3 he's in. So he's definitely a mainstay.
I do want to say, since we're just starting this house, and it's probably not the only time I will reference it through this series, but a movie that I did on a sister show here on the Nerd Party Network was about a Kurosawa movie starring Toshiro Mifune called High and Low. We will not be covering it on this stretch, but anybody listening to me, including my 2 co-hosts that I'm looking at right now, do yourself a favor and watch it. It's a stunning film. It is absolutely stunning. And it came out 13 years after this, and it's an amazing film. You've got to see it. Sorry for that brief detour there, but 13 years later, Toshiro Mifune was still working with Akira Kurosawa in a different film, which is amazing. That's a long collaboration. That's like a De Niro Scorsese length collaboration going on there.
I think for me, one of the interesting aspects is it's a very timeless movie, as far as it's made in the 50s. But it's black and white, and it's a period piece. So it's not like, oh, it's made in the 50s in that modern time, and they're wearing suits, and it's obviously stuck in a moment. This has a timeless quality where, I mean, except for the fact that modern film cameras would probably capture it a little differently, like you could produce the same results today. Maybe you wouldn't have to dye the rain with ink to make it show up on the film. But I think when movies are able to be timeless like that, I don't know, not saying it makes them easier to digest. I think it just takes a piece of it away where you don't have to worry about that. And you can just let the story, I could show this to my kids. I could show this to my parents. Like it could have been seen at any time, and it would. I mean, I'm not showing it to my kids. I'm just saying,
kind of a heavy choice for kids.
Different generations can experience it in different decades, and I think get the same result, which I think is great.
Yeah, this is one of those reasons that, like John, you and I were talking about how it has lasting power, is that even though it takes place in feudal Japan or like an earlier time, an ancient time, this could happen just with different clothing. Like replace the swords with knives. You replace the kimonos with athletic gear, whatever.
Replace the jungle with the inner city or something like that.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things where, and I think that's another reason why, like even the monk's reaction is timeless. You're just like, oh my God, like people are so terrible. Like I just can't do this anymore.
Well, you want to talk about a hook at the beginning? Like he's laying it on thick, and he's like, I can't believe like what I just witnessed, and I'm like, what did you watch? Like, please tell me, because apparently it is extremely traumatizing. And all I'm going off of is your tiny bit of dialogue. Like, man, what a hook. But just, I think this movie also is a great rallying cry to student film because it has 3 locations. Like, don't say you can't make a movie because you can't find 3 locations. It has the Grove, the gate, and the courtyard, the police courtyard. And the courtyard is one angle, like a locked off shot looking one direction. And it's just, but you never feel it. I never felt like I wasn't, I mean, maybe the Grove is the most, maybe there's an A and a B, it's a large expansive area. Maybe you throw in the shore of the river, but like, basically is 3 locations, and that's just incredible.
Yeah, it is. And I like that you said you never feel trapped by the limited locations, because Kurosawa and his cinematographer are working so hard to make the shots interesting that you don't have the chance to get bored with what you're looking at. I think what can happen a lot, and this is where the director of photography really needs a lot of credit, is that framing it in a certain way. The DP and the director have to work together really, really well to frame it and to say, okay, how are we going to make these shots interesting and compelling enough? And, to your point, you can have 3 locations so long as you're making the right shot selection, so long as you're editing things together in a way that you never give the audience the chance to get bored enough to start analyzing it and realize that they're never going to leave these 3 locations.
Although I want to say one thing, though, and I kind of give it a little bit of a pass because it was the beginning and the movie was kind of just rolling. But I kind of want Tristan's input on the woodcutters walk into the forest, which in my mind felt like it went on for an eternity. like he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to tell you a story. And I was just walking through the forest, and then he's walking and walking and walking. And I'm not going to say I didn't feel bored with it, but I felt like, when's he going to get there? Like I was actually kind of, did it feel like that kind of sequence went on a tad too long?
No, it felt like an eternity. I'm right there with you. Like I thought we were going to get a secondary title sequence because of it. And if that was made today, that's where your title sequence would have been. Like you would have had a little bit of rain. There's
titles scrolling up on the trees around him as he walks deeper into the forest.
Yeah, no. Okay, hold on. This isn't Baby Driver. Let's not get out of control there. But I think it definitely went on way too long. That was one of those things where I'm just like, are we padding the runtime? What's going on? There's really only 2 things that I very much was just like, I don't like that. Like I would have done something different, but you have to give it a pass, especially for the time that it was made, where things were much more literal in certain teams. Like when people were traversing from point A to point B, you often would show them going from point A to point B. And so it's very much a product of its time, but also the wipes. I couldn't stand the wipes because you got them at the beginning, but then basically you didn't really see them after that. The one thing I'll say is, that walk takes a long time, but I think it goes a long way toward reinforcing for the rest of it. They were in the middle of nowhere. How far out were you? Oh, you wouldn't even believe it. Were you out by that tree? Oh, no, I was past that tree. Well, were you past the creek? No. No, keep on going. I was way out there. There's no way anybody else could have seen what I'm telling you right now. Oh, no, there's not a chance that somebody in the town saw this.
I mean, it's definitely intentional. It wasn't. I don't for a second think they were like, boy, we need to pad this 88-minute runtime, so let's add a 10-minute walking sequence in the forest. Not that it was 10 minutes, but it felt like 10 minutes. So
yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying is like, I think it emphasizes that idea of isolation. Oh, why didn't somebody go to help? Why didn't somebody hear the shouts? Why didn't somebody hear the fight? Well, because we were literally miles from anywhere, guys. And I think that walking sequence reinforces that they were nowhere near anybody. I'm not dismissing, the point at all. I'm saying like, I think that was probably the intent behind it.
So I want to talk about the lighting in the movie because lighting played a key role in this. It's dark, it's rainy at the beginning, or I should say in the framing device. And then, you see light and shadow mixed a lot in the Grove. And it's also incredibly hard to do that with black and white in the Grove. Like when you have light going through the trees and the leaves and everything like that. And apparently they weren't getting the light bounce that they needed on set. Like the normal reflector that you would have used during that time just wasn't giving them the light that they needed. And so they stole a full body mirror from the costume designer and used that to reflect the light. And that's how you get such stark contrast in the Grove. And I think that in itself is such a cool thing to know. And you can really tell, you can really see it. Like everything is exposed properly. Like even when they go deep into the shadow, you get silhouettes and you get hairlights and you get outlines. And it's and then at the very, very end, when he picks up the baby and he starts walking out, it stops raining. The sun comes out. And I want to know from you guys, how did you interpret the light? What did you notice about the light? When I mention the lighting, what's the first thing that comes to your brain?
Well, the first thing that comes to my brain is I think the lighting reinforces that whole confused nature of things, where like it's everything's broken up. There's no clear definition, for you. Now it doesn't. I'm not contradicting what you're saying, where like everything's framed well and contrast right. I'm saying like the light itself is inconsistent. You have the dappled lighting and everything like that. What I'll offer is, interestingly enough, I think some people have offered that the sun itself, the sunlight represents evil. And I think that's a stretch and a half. But I just wanted to put that out there, but I think that the way that they use the lighting gives it this, distorted is the wrong word, but just that lack of clarity that the stories themselves reinforce.
I mean, I'm just amazed that this is pretty much an all exterior movie. And the control of lighting they have. I mean, if any of these were on sets, I couldn't tell. I don't think they were, but especially in the Grove, I think that's the one I think of most when you say the lighting, because it had this uncanny way of having the mottled light from the trees land on the subject, but they were also then hit by the mirror so that they were bright enough to stand out from the background. Because every shot in this movie, when you're in that forest, the background is so busy. There's leaves everywhere, trees everywhere, leaves everywhere. And it's amazing how there were times there was obviously a little bit of depth of field, but for the most part, it wasn't depth of field that was breaking up the foreground subject and the background. It felt like they were both exposed with the same light. They just were able to capture your foreground subject really cleanly, and they never got lost in the forest. Even there was one shot that I kind of noticed when the bandit was he was looking at the wife. I'm trying to remember whose point of view it was, but the point is he was looking through different branches, and it was the only thing that caught me was the fact that they had the light on him. So he had to put his eyes not in shadow, but purposely put them in the light to look through the branches. And I'm like, gosh, that must be painful, because visually it makes sense, but technically you're looking into the sun to get this shot in this moment so that the shadows fall above and below your eye. Because I'm like, the only way his eyes are lit is if the light is hitting them. But they did. Yeah. I mean, again, I was amazed that a black and white movie like this did not lose them into the background, because I feel like that would have been so easy to do. Or you give them only side lighting or something could have been off where you're not lighting it right and they would just vanish into that noise. But I could always tell, even their swords, thin swords that are in the frame are sparkling in the sun. This is obviously a person who knows how to shoot black and white, how to expose it, how to light it, how to depth of field it. And it worked. Like, you give the camera to a novice and this type of, especially the Grove setting, it could easily look like trash. Easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's actually somebody who offered, just as long as we're talking about the lighting and everything, it's Professor Keiko McDonald said that supposedly, now this is not Kurosawa's own words, so Kurosawa was waiting for a big cloud in that final shot to leave the hint that the child is walking out into a world where darkness can happen at any time. How true is that? No idea, because that's not from Kurosawa's mouth. And I think that I think what's really interesting, especially talking about it, with you guys, I've seen this before. I've heard some of the discussion before. I've heard the back and forth. I think what's interesting is a movie about the ambiguity of perspective has 76 years of discourse around it that in and of itself is ambiguous, because it's everybody's personal perspective on things laid over what Kurosawa was doing. And it's mind-numbing, because there are even essays out there that the whole thing is an allegory for what happened to Japan in World War II, even though the story it's based on was written in 1922. And so people will then say, oh, well, yeah, but Kurosawa made some changes. And that's what he was really saying. But unless it's directly from Kurosawa's mouth, all of this discourse just, beautifully and poetically reinforces the film, where it's all going to depend on a person's perspective, what they want to lay over the story and the experience. It's wild to watch how it's this own meta experience within the experience of discussing the experience of the film. And it's like, is this Inception? Is this originally Inception right now? Like, is that what happened with this? I don't know. But I find it so fascinating, because it illustrates how all film discussion, all film criticism is that. So much of it is weighted by perspective.
All right. Well, we've been going on for a while now, and I feel like we could keep going for the double amount of time. And so, per tradition, I'm going to go with Darren here. And how many missing daggers are you giving this film?
There's no dagger. It's a missing dagger. Although I will say, as far as a more modern movie that uses the Rashomon, I have to give it to 1985's Clue, which had like 4 endings that they don't really ever tell you which is the right one. They actually leave it ambiguous, which I think is really fun. And it's just a fun movie.
Not really.
No, they say this is how it really happened.
Yeah.
No, but then
at the end.
No, but then someone else comes in and says this is how it really happened, and then someone else comes in and says no, this is how it there's 4 endings to that movie.
I think we need to have House of Clue to settle this.
I will talk about Clue till I'm blue in the face. So
yeah,
I love the fact that they also would put it on different reels, so different theaters got different endings.
It didn't work too well for the box office, though. That's the problem.
No, but yeah. I like the concept. That's more of a Netflix era thing that would work.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
But all that to say, I'm giving this 4 missing daggers. This was an incredible start, giving just a little room to grow. But I definitely want to watch it again, reevaluate, or not reevaluate, just watch it again for the joy of watching it, for taking in the nuances of the performances and the characters. And I know I'm not going to be able to tell whose story is true, because that's not the point, but just wallow in it. Even with the third act weird left turn of the baby, that was a little much. I didn't quite get that, but Four daggers for me.
John, how about you?
5, and I don't care. Like there are going to be a lot of 5s in this house. I'm just going to spoiler warning. I do like it. For me, it all comes back to this was a missing frame for me for many, many years. And then there was one day where I was like, oh, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to watch Rashomon. And this wasn't in the distant past either. It was fairly recent. It was like within the last decade. And I was like, all right, let me just put this on. And I put it on and I was just like, oh goodness. Oh, wow. I get it. And I've loved it since I saw it the first time. So it's a solid 5 from me.
It's a 5 for me as well. This wasn't so much me falling in love with it or falling head over heels over it. It's just the craftsmanship, what it did for the culture, what it did to the zeitgeist, and how much it's been referenced. This was very much a pioneering movie, and it was a great opening internationally to Kurosawa. And so, yeah, 5 stars, 100%. This deserves it. And I think everything that we said prior proves our points here. Darren, what are we doing next week?
Oh, next week, we're continuing again in the house of Kurosawa with 1954's Seven Samurai. Next on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.